The shop had no sign, just the thick stink of burning trash cans and that sharp, fermented ube smell that hit you like a slap the second you crossed the threshold. 2 a.m, deep in an Itaewon back alley, where even the streetlights looked tired and half the neon was flickering like it was about to give up for good. Adanna Okoro sat behind the salvaged teak counter in her short ochre silk tunic, no bra, the fabric sticking to her dark skin from the humidity rolling off the brass brazier at her feet. Her left palm itched like fire ants crawling under the skin, digging deeper every minute. The Agwu was restless again, whispering in her skull with that glass-scraping bone voice that never let her sleep easy anymore. She was next in line to be the full priestess back in Enugu, the one the ancestors had been calling for years, with dreams that left her sweating and screaming and waking up with blood on her pillow. But she'd run 3 years ago, after her father's gambling debt got him killed in that staged car accident, and the spirit never forgave her for it. Every time she used the power now, it took extra blood as punishment, like it was pissed she was still hiding from what she was born to be, still pretending she could just cook jollof for diplomats by day and play back alley healer by night. A local loan shark named Park slumped across from her, hands trembling like he'd already seen his own grave. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his eyes were bloodshot, the kind of red that said he hadn't slept in days. My chest, it burns like hot coals, sitting right on my heart. Fix it, please. I can't breathe right anymore. The doctors say stress, but I know it's something else. Adanna didn't even look at his face. She dropped a single Ose-Oji seed into the mortar. Thump, grind, thump. The sound filled the tiny room like a second heartbeat, steady and unforgiving, echoing off the low ceiling. You didn't swallow a curse, Park. You swallowed your boss's cut from last Tuesday. Locker 47 at Seoul Station. The money's still there, and your body's trying to vomit the guilt before it rots you from the inside like bad meat. Park went the color of old ash. His mouth opened and closed a couple times, but nothing came out at first. His hands clenched on the edge of the counter. She poured the bitter Utazi broth into a clay cup and slid it across the counter, the liquid dark and steaming. He drank it in one desperate gulp, hands shaking so bad, some spilled down his shirt and left wet spots. 2 minutes later, he was on his knees, puking thick black bile that smelled like rot and regret and old blood. Invisible fingers, the Agwu's doing, clawed at his face in the air only he could see. He screamed the names of the widows he'd robbed, while his eyes rolled back and snot ran down his chin. The Agwu laughed low in Adanna's head, satisfied for a second, but it still wanted more because she kept refusing the full calling. She wiped the first thin trickle of blood from her own nose with the back of her hand. Payment. Always double payment when you run from what the ancestors marked you for. Her knees felt a little weak, but she stayed standing. The door creaked open without a knock, letting in a rush of cold night air that smelled like diesel and rotting cabbage and something sharper, like gun oil. Kwon Jae-min stepped inside, like the night itself had walked in and decided to stay. Tall, dragon tattoo curling up the side of his neck and disappearing under his black collar, leather gloves creaking as he flexed his fingers. Eyes like 2 holes burned straight through ice. 2 silent goons stayed by the door, blocking the exit like they expected trouble any second. The Dibia of Itaewon, he said, voice flat as a blade. My father, Chairman Rowe, needs a taster, someone who can smell betrayal before it touches his tongue. Word is, you're the one who makes liars choke on their own secrets. Adanna kept grinding a fresh root, silver knife flashing in the dim light. The itch in her palm flared hotter, the Agwu pushing. Get a chemist, cheaper, and no blood on the floor when it goes wrong. I'm not interested in your family drama. Jamin leaned across the counter, close enough that his wood smoke cologne cut through the pepper dust and made her stomach tighten in a way she didn't like at all. I know about the 400 million won your gambling father owed the Black Lotus before his little car accident that left no skid marks. I know you send most of your money to Choma in Lagos so she can stay in school and not end up like you. One banquet. You expose the rat inside our circle. Half the debt burns tonight, in front of you. Take it, or I make sure the Seoul Metropolitan Police find out exactly what kind of herbs you're really selling back here. She finally met his eyes, heart kicking hard against her ribs. The Agwu pushed harder, whispering more, because she was still running from the full priestess weight on her shoulders. Every traitor I pull out, another piece of that debt burns right then. And you watch me do it. No hiding behind your gloves or your goons. I want to see the paper go up in smoke with my own eyes. He reached across without asking, tucked a stray braid behind her ear. The leather glove was cold against her warm skin. She grabbed his wrist hard enough to feel the bone shift under her fingers. Neither of them blinked. The Agwu whispered more again. Hungry and angry, she still refused to kneel and accept the full priestess role the ancestors kept screaming for in her dreams every night. Car at 6 tomorrow, Jamin said. He pulled his hand back slowly, like it cost him something. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him like a final period. Alone again, Adanna stared at the fresh blood on her palm. The Agwu flashed her a quick vision, her father's car flipping on wet asphalt, glass raining down like sharp salt, his last scream cut short by the impact. She packed the mortar anyway, hands steady even though her head already ached and her knees felt a little weak. We're going in, she muttered to the empty room, voice rough with exhaustion. But I'm still running, you greedy bastard. Don't get too comfortable thinking I'm yours yet. The satellite kitchen in the Songbukdong mansion was all brushed steel and cold white light that made Adanna's teeth hurt and her skin crawl like it was too clean for what she was about to do. No warmth, no history, just machines humming like they were waiting for something to die under the knives. She worked barefoot in a short white linen shift, the hem brushing her thighs every time she moved, mortar thumping steady, while sweat slid down her spine and made the fabric cling in ways that felt too exposed. Jamin leaned against the counter, watching her like she was a loaded gun he wasn't sure he should point at his own father. His eyes tracked every grind, every bead of sweat, every small flex of her arm, but he didn't say much at first. The air felt thick with the scent of crushed Ose-Oji and his wood smoke cologne. The banquet started downstairs in the big hall with its gray silk and forced smiles. She sent out the sea bass, laced heavy with Utazi and crushed Ose-Oji, the scent sharp enough to cut through the recycled air and make a couple of the guests shift uncomfortably. The guy in the blue tie, one of the chairman's top lieutenants, took one bite and froze mid-chew. Then the screaming started, not just choking. The Agwu hit him full force, angry because Adanna was still running from the calling. He clawed at his own eyes, black bile pouring from his nose and mouth in thick ropes, howling the names of every man he'd sold out while ghost hands no one else could see dragged him under the table in his mind. His body convulsed like something was eating him alive from the inside, legs kicking, piss soaking the front of his expensive pants. The whole room went dead quiet, except for the wet sounds of his terror and the scrape of chairs as people backed away in horror. Security hauled him away, still twitching, and confessing every dirty deal he'd ever made, the words spilling out like they'd been waiting years to escape. Jaemin dragged her into the empty kitchen right after, grip on her upper arm like iron, fingers digging in just enough to remind her who was in charge here. "How the fuck did you do that? Tell me straight, no riddles." Adanna wiped fresh blood from under her nose with the back of her hand, the metallic taste already in her throat and making her swallow hard. The Agwu was laughing again, feeding hard because she kept refusing the full priestess path. Salt doesn't lie, guilt does the rest. But the Agwu wants blood when I push it this hard. I'm supposed to be the next full priestess back home, the one who carries the ancestors' full weight and speaks for them without running. I ran from it 3 years ago, so now it makes me pay double every single time, like it's punishing me for still hiding from the calabash and the full rituals. He stared at the red on her fingers, something cracking behind those ice-cold eyes for the first time. His breath came a little faster. He stepped closer until his chest almost brushed hers, the air between them thickening with pepper, gun oil, and whatever storm was starting to build between them. For a second, their lips almost touched. She could feel the heat rolling off him, the way the power in her blood answered the danger in his, like it recognized a fellow monster. Her palm burned hotter. Her knees felt weak again. Then he pulled back, jaw tight, like it physically hurt him to stop. "You stay locked in the penthouse tonight," he said, voice low and rough. "No phone, no leaving. I don't trust what you are yet, but I need you alive for the next round." She spent the night grinding more herbs while the Agwu showed her another flash. Choma's face pressed against a car window, screaming, hands banging on the glass, like she knew what was coming. Blood dripped from Adanna's nose again, warm and sticky down her chin. Her head pounded like someone was hammering nails behind her eyes. The Agwu whispered that she could stop the bleeding if she just stopped running, but she ignored it. At dawn, Jaemin came back carrying a clean shirt. He didn't speak at first, just watched her wash the blood off her face at the sink, water turning pink in the steel basin. His gloves creaked when he clenched his fists at his sides. "You're making it hard to stay cold," he finally said, almost too quiet, like the words tasted strange in his mouth. Adanna smirked, even though her skull felt like it was splitting open. She dried her face on the sleeve of the shirt he brought. "Good. Cold men die first around here, and the Agwu's got a long memory for people who think they can control it or me." Midnight in the penthouse kitchen, the Seoul skyline bleeding soft neon through the floor-to-ceiling glass like distant fire on water. Jaemin stood behind Adanna, his breath warm against the nape of her neck as he tied the black silk over her eyes. His fingers lingered, tracing the line of her long, flowing, waist-length natural black hair, where it spilled like liquid midnight down her back. The thin thin plum silk slip dress she wore clung to every curve of her slim, thick goddess body. Midnight black skin glowing under the low lights. "Prove the sight without looking," he murmured, voice low and rough. "Every right answer earns me one truth I can't lie about. No games tonight." He fed her herbs one by one, his fingertips brushing hers each time, sending slow sparks up her arms. The air grew thick with crushed pepper, wood smoke cologne, and the faint metallic hint of her earlier blood. When she named the Ose-Oji and described exactly how it burned liars from the inside, his hand slid around her waist, palm flat against the warm curve of her stomach. The silk felt like nothing between them. She felt the hard line of his holster, the heat of his lean muscled body, the dangerous tension rolling off him like a storm about to break. She guessed right about his mother leaving, because she saw the monster waking in his eyes. That broke something in him. He turned her slowly, yanked her up onto the marble island, blindfold slipping just enough for her to see the raw hunger in his black eyes. Their mouths crashed together, deep and desperate, like two people who had been circling this fire for days. Her long hair fell around them like a dark curtain as he pulled her closer, hands sliding down the sides of her body, tracing the full swell of her hips, the narrow dip of her waist. She wrapped her legs around him, feeling the hard press of his body against hers, the way the juju in her blood answered the danger in his, like it had been waiting for this exact collision. Then the vision slammed into her like a physical blow. Choma at the Incheon warehouse, blue dragon men, a scarred lip and a gun. She gasped it against his mouth, still tangled in him, bodies pressed tight. He believed her instantly. No questions. They dressed fast, but the heat between them lingered like a promise. The warehouse raid was chaos under floodlights on the salt flats, wind whipping cold and sharp, bullets cracked. Adanna mixed the quick toothpaste on the hood of a car while Jaemin covered her, his shoulder grazed and bleeding. They got Choma out alive. In the getaway car, adrenaline still burning hot in their veins, Adanna cleaned his wound with Utazi water, her long hair falling forward, like a dark waterfall over her shoulders. Their eyes locked. The air crackled. Then they were on each other again, urgent, almost frantic. She climbed into his lap in the back seat, the car speeding through the rain-slick streets, Seoul lights streaking past the windows in wild blurs of white and red. Her midnight black skin pressed against his fair porcelain tone as she moved fast and hard, hands gripping his shoulders, hips rolling with raw need. The adrenaline from the raid poured into every thrust, every gasp, every tight hold. His fingers dug into her hips, pulling her closer, their mouths crashing again and again while the city flashed outside. It was desperate and alive, like the juju itself was pushing them forward, refusing to let the moment slow down. She came with a sharp cry of his name, body shuddering against his as the car raced on. The Agwu took its price right after, blood from her nose and ears, but even as she passed out whispering in Igbo, still wrapped tight around him, the connection between them felt forged in fire and survival. Chairman Rowe sat at the head of the mahogany table like a king who still believed he ruled the world. The penthouse lights were low, the city skyline glowing cold outside the glass. Adanna placed the clear broth in front of him, steam rising thin and straight, carrying that sharp iron and pepper bite. "Meal of reckoning," she said, voice low and steady. "Drink it slow. It doesn't forgive." He laughed, dry and jagged, and took a spoonful. The Agwu hit him like a hammer the ancestors had been sharpening for years. The old man went rigid, eyes wide, seeing every man he'd buried, every betrayal, including the order that killed her father. Ghosts clawed at his face in the air only he could see. Black bile ran from his nose and mouth. He begged for death, while the guilt tore him apart from the inside. Jaemin stood behind him, gun drawn. Adanna stopped him with one hand on his arm. "Death is easy. Let him live with the salt. That's the real curse." Jaemin snapped the jade cane over his knee. He exiled his father to Jeju that same night. Later, in the quiet penthouse, Jaemin sat shirtless while the Hongdae tattooist worked. The red Adinkra symbol, Onyankopon Adom, was woven into the dragon on his back. Adanna watched, then showed him her own fresh mark on her inner wrist. Tiny hanja for salt, wrapped in Utazi vines. Choma was safe in London. The debt was gone. She could leave. Instead, she climbed onto his lap, her long waist-length hair falling around them like a dark silk curtain. This time it was slow, deliberate, deeply intimate. Their bodies moved like they were carving something permanent into each other. His hands explored the lush curves of her slim, thick goddess figure with quiet reverence, tracing the midnight black glow of her skin, the full swell of her breasts, the narrow waist that flared into strong hips. She arched into him, her long hair brushing his chest as she lowered herself onto him, taking him deep and unhurried, their eyes locked the entire time. Every movement was sensual and measured, a slow roll of her hips, the way her body welcomed his, the soft gasps and low groans that filled the quiet room. The juju hummed between them, making every touch feel electric, every kiss taste like salt and smoke and truth. Her midnight skin against his fair porcelain tone created a beautiful, dangerous contrast that neither could look away from. He whispered her name like a vow, hands sliding up her back as they moved together, building heat and pressure in long, lingering waves until they came undone at the same moment, deep, shattering, connected in a way that went far beyond the physical. Her long hair spilled over his shoulders as she trembled against him, the Agwu finally quiet in her head, satisfied for once, because she had stopped running long enough to choose this. Seoul rain lashed the windows hard. Inside the cage of steel and salt, two broken people held each other tight, skin warm, hearts still racing. The priestess had her king. The king had finally tasted something that wasn't poison, and somewhere in the dark, the Agwu smiled, still hungry, still waiting for the day she stopped running for good.